If you've wanted to add a form of passive income on as a photographer with minimal work, you're going to be blown away by this episode and leave with a long list of new ideas. Hello, sunshine, and welcome back to the Gold Biz Podcast with me, your host, Rachel Traxler. Today, I have with me Aubrey Westlund, and we're talking all about how to start stock photography, whether you want to use it as a side income, passive income, or just shift and transition your business into offering stock photography. So, she actually used to be a wedding photographer, but now she does stock photography full time, and it is amazing the transformation that can happen with this. This is a really powerful episode. I left with a ton of ideas and tons of notes. So I know that you're going to do the same. But before we get started, make sure to follow along on Instagram at Rachel Traxler and let me know which episodes you're loving the most so that I can also share the love in return. Okay, time to pull up your notes app because here we go. Yay, Aubrey. I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited because this is a topic that we have not talked about on my podcast and just the potential opportunities and what it could look like in terms of creating some passive income with stock photography. I feel like there's a lot of photographers that listen and maybe it's something they've thought about, maybe it's something they've never thought about. I'm just excited to pick your brain on this today. So, if you want to just start off, kick us off strong with just telling us a little bit about what stock photography entails and how someone can use it and just the 101 basically.
So, stock photography is basically, you could say it's like a collection of photos that are available to be licensed for either commercial or editorial use. And usually there are like certain rules for each one, what like they have to have model releases and things like this if they're going to be used for commercial use, obviously, through a stock photo agency. So, this is a really great resource for businesses and brands and graphic designers who don't have the resources to like plan a full photo shoot or they're under a time crunch, they have to make a deadline. So, that's why making your photos available, they can be licensed over and over again for different usages and you can make passive income off the same photo for 10 years or more.
And that's amazing. So it's basically like us photographers too, like we have so many photos of things. Are there certain stipulations, rules, regulations around specific objects or things or guidelines that people have to
Yeah.
photograph, or can you kind of just upload, or what does that look like?
So there are some guidelines, like obviously, if anything has like a logo or they call it intellectual property. So, for example, like you have a painting behind you, someone
Yeah.
else painted that, and in a way, like
Mhm.
that's a creation of their mind. And so you would need them to sign a release saying, like, I'm okay with you profiting off of this creation of mine. So the rule of thumb is just like try and avoid things like that. So any kind of logo, any sort of like cartoon character, like the way you could think about it is like if another business is making money off of that, so like Disney characters, for example, they're making money off their characters. You can't have those in a stock image because they don't want other brands making money off of their property. So that's the big one. And it seems confusing at first, but you'll really start to get the hang of it as you start submitting photos. The other thing is just having model releases. People need to be aware that their images are used for stock or images of their likeness are being used for stock. And so they need to sign a model release that has that stock specific wording in it. A lot of us as photographers, we have like model releases in our contracts, but most of the time it doesn't have that stock specific wording.
That's really good to know too, as someone's kind of getting started. And does does it tell you? Will it give you a notification like, "Hey, this has intellectual property. You can't use this," or is it something you just have to be careful of?
Yeah, most agencies will they'll like reject the image and they'll give you a reason why. So then you also have the chance you can go back and like Photoshop that thing out of your image.
Okay, well, that's good so that you don't, like, accidentally do something that you're like, "Oh, like, I didn't mean to do that, and it did," and then it just kinda spiraled. Like, that's really cool, like, just good to know too. So even a question like, if I were to photograph, like, this notebook on my table, this notebook actually is blank. I don't
Mm.
remember where I got it, but say it had something written here. Would that and I bought it from a company or something, would that
Mm-hmm.
technically be intellectual property of another company?
So there is kind of like a gray area with things like this. Like, say it just said like agenda on the front. That's probably okay to have in your photo. But if it was like someone's very specific logo, you would want to Photoshop that out.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense. I guess the good news is if they're even questioning it, the agency is going to send it back to you, right? And flag it and tell you that it might have intellectual
Yeah,
property on it.
exactly. They know
Okay.
exactly what to look for. And as a stock photographer, you will learn these things as well. Like, even little things you wouldn't think about at first, like there are going to be logos on tennis shoes. There will always be logos on tennis shoes. And like at first, you'll probably miss that when you're submitting your photos. But now I always know like where to look for the logos. So those are the things they'll just kind of become ingrained within you.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's so cool. Like this is just crazy. The fact that we have so much work and we have so many photos that we might even have a lot in our just in our
Exactly.
camera roll already that we could probably upload. And what agencies or platforms do you suggest to start uploading these things to?
So, if you are a professional photographer, I would definitely look at premium agencies or agencies that send your images to multiple agencies. It's called like a multi uploader agency. So, I have like a full free resource on this. It's called My Little Black Book of Stock Photo Agencies that your audience is welcome to go download. But I will tell
Okay.
you just on this program, my favorite agencies are Stocksy, Cavan Images, Offset, and then like when it comes to microstock, I have other favorite agencies like Adobe Stock, but that guy kind of walks you through everything that like differentiates each agency and what like stock C is great because they're artist owned co-ops, so you kind of have more say in how things are run, and they're definitely more on the side of the artist, where some other well-known stock agencies are more just trying to make as much money as possible, and they're more on the side of the customer. So those are kind of things that it's good to be aware of before you get started with an agency.
That's really good to know. And then even just speaking to that, can we talk about like how is this lucrative? Like can you make money from doing stock photography and how what does that look like? How do you make money with your stock photography? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So once you upload your photos to your agency, your work is done, at least for those photos, and the agency takes care of licensing and everything. So the reason you see different pricing with stock is because there are different licenses. So, say one person wants like the exclusive right to use a photo in like an ad campaign, and they don't want other people buying that photo for the next 2 years. They're going to pay like maybe $6,000 for the usage of that. And then you'll get whatever your agreed upon commission is with your agency. So I recently had a student who made like a $5,000 sale because of that. And then you have microstock agencies that their goal is to sell like the volume of photos. So their prices are going to be very, very low. And that's definitely like a different type of clientele. With the premium agencies, you're most likely to make around $100 per sale per license because they have like a more simple licensing. But I mean, people are still paying like $300 to $500 for a license with each photo. Like the possibility of making really great income is there.
Wow. And so do you have to split that with the agency or like what percentage do you get as a photographer of those?
It depends agency by agency. So that's why
Okay.
that's kind of like that's the information that's in that free guide. Sometimes it could be like as low as 20%. Other agencies are more like 50-50. So that's definitely something to consider. But I feel like personally, I look at it as like they're getting half because they're doing all the marketing for me. I'm fine with it. I know other people like it upsets them that they only get, that small of a percentage, but this is such a truly passive income stream that you're going to have to give away. Like you're giving
Yeah,
up the necessity to do marketing in exchange for like paying the agency half maybe of your
totally.
sales.
Totally. Yeah, I can see where that'd be worth it and stuff. And even like if you plan just one day a month or something to shoot content and stuff and
Exactly. Or
then
even just
uploaded it,
uploading what you have. Like
what you
that's
have.
how
Yeah.
I started my first couple years. It was just like, okay, what do I have on these hard drives? I've got like vacation photos and personal photos and like, oh, I'm pretty close with this client. I bet I could ask them to sign a model release. And just by uploading what you already have, you're going to learn so much about what sells as well. So
That's
it's
a
worth it to
really
just take that time, like you said, even an hour a month or like an hour a week when you're watching your favorite show or whatever. It's totally doable.
That's such good advice too. Like
Yeah,
like I said, we already have so much. Like just start there without it being
exactly.
overwhelming. That is so cool, Aubrey. I just love that anyone listening could just start today and like get started with this
Hmm.
and just kind of see where it goes and see what picks up. And heck, you never know. I kind of have a question too. What have you seen? What type of content performs well? Or do you see it's kind of all over the board?
Yeah, so there are a few categories of this. Like right off the bat, images with people in them always do really well. And then there's going to be like your seasonal content. So think holidays, think seasons. That's how I teach my students to optimize their portfolio so that they know they're going to make money, make sales every month of the year. And then there are like little niches and trends. Like if something is new, so the example I always like to use is like back in 2020, we all had to start wearing masks and there were no stock photos. There were very few stock photos of people wearing masks. And if you like take photos in a different way, or if you can like find these really specific niches of things that you like to photograph, like butterflies, for example. Like, say you had a collection of like photographing butterflies, like
Yeah.
you're going to be the person when people are searching for butterfly photos, like all your work's going to pop up. So, those are kind of like some little ways that you can definitely increase your sales.
I'm interrupting my own episode to give you a quick glimpse into my signature coaching program created for established photographers wanting to double to quadruple their prices, book their highest package, and bring in inquiries consistently. This is my high level container of go-to photographers who are making huge waves in the industry. And the biggest difference in this program is that we get a full 12 months together for deep dive transformation, weekly coaching call support, 4 coaches in the program to deep dive into specific topics, and a content retreat all included in one program. And I always say, if you can book one extra wedding from your year in the program together, you're going to see your ROI. And it's just the weekly norm wins for my students. So I'm fully confident that you're going to be able to do that and way, way more. And this is an application, phone call, and acceptance process only type of program. So if you are curious if this is the right next steps for you to just blow up your business this year, you can fill out the application at racheltraxler.com/apply or get the link in the show notes. I'll be in touch shortly after you fill it out so that we can talk through together if this is the right fit for you. I'm very honest with people and I want this to be a great fit for everyone involved. That's just my heart behind the way I do this process. And I also think that's why my students just see so much success in this program. So don't just be an information consumption overload this year. I want you to be an action taker and start implementing change into your business. So again, if this feels aligned to you, fill out the application at racheltraxler.com/apply to apply for my Passion to Profit coaching program. Yeah, and I love that because what's cool, similar to like being a wedding photographer, being a photographer at all, it's like we all do the same thing, but we all do it so differently. And we all have our own eye and our own
Exactly.
interests and own things that like little niches within what we do, what makes us unique to ourselves. Even if someone's listening to this thinking, oh, well, why would my photos perform better or get picked up over someone else's. It's like you just don't know,
Right.
and your interests are your own, and they, you can find your little niches within there, which I think is really
Exactly.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to like give you one more example of that,
Yeah,
I
please.
love to garden. I love plants. And so I'm always taking photos of them. Sometimes I'll even like bring plants inside and like do a little studio shoot with them. And that's kind of like what I started to get noticed for in stock photography. Shutterstock actually like interviewed me and wrote a blog about my garden photography. And it wasn't
Wow.
like I didn't like call myself a garden photographer, just
Yeah.
like
Right.
it's what I love and what I enjoy. And then that's what I end up seeing sells. It's like when your passion is in something, it's always going to shine through in your photos,
100%. That's
right?
so cool that, yeah, you can have it, you can do it and still do it differently and have your own approach on it, which I think is so cool. And that just gives people like inspiration and motivation listening to this to be like, oh, yeah, now maybe I can
Good.
specialize in this and do this, and not even specialize, but just take pictures of this because I like to do this. Yeah, I think that's
Exactly.
super cool. And did you have
It
something to
also
add?
helps you if you're going through burnout as a photographer. That happened to me with weddings. Like I lost all my like creative passion for shooting weddings and
Sure.
I guess for photography in general. And so like allowing yourself to shoot whatever you want and not saying like I have to get paid to shoot it, that will bring back your love for photography and your love for whatever it is that you're shooting, because like sometimes we need a break and we need to just like shoot for our own creative reasons. And this kind of gives you like an excuse to do that.
Absolutely. It's just a creative outlet for yourself, which is really cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Give you the freedom to shoot whatever you want to.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
people. It
that's
doesn't
why I
have to
love
be.
it.
That is so cool. Oh my goodness. I love it. And then also kind of leads into a question of, we're entering in the world of AI stuff. And I know like AI is insane. Like it's crazy. You can go to Canva and just type like, you know, put me in Bali, let me be doing yoga in Bali or whatever, and it will like generate pictures for you. Where have you
Mhm.
seen the line be drawn with stock
So,
photography and
I will
AI,
first say that
and,
I love
what's
AI.
using with integrity?
I
What does
love
that look like?
I love like using ChatGPT in creative ways. I actually created my own GPT, which is like basically in ChatGPT you can create your own that like basically like you're giving it all the instructions so that when you upload a photo. So what I did was I created a GPT that will keyword my photos for me,
Mhm.
which saves me hours upon hours of time. And so now I just upload the photo to my custom GPT and it will just spit out all the keywords and description for me. So like AI is helping me make more money with stock photography, which most people like have this
Amazing.
idea that stock
Incredible.
photography is dead now. I don't agree with that, but I guess there's so many like angles I could speak on that. Just like kind of spit out a few of my thoughts.
Good.
First,
That's
I
good.
think that people that are using AI imagery, they're the same people that are using free stock
Perfect.
photos. So like clientele than the people who purchase my stock photos. I think AI imagery is a little bit closer to illustration, which we already have stock illustration. We have a need for something like an image. We don't want to use a real image to convey a message. A friend of mine, she is a high school counselor, and she was like, what kind of image she should use for it was like a class that had to do with like depression or something like that. And she didn't want to use stock images of really sad teenagers. So I was like, look at illustration. And I think that AI gives us the ability to create new things that either like express real is like something that we do in real life. I wish I knew the name of the designer, but I saw this someone was like doing branding for like a petition or like a tennis open or something, whatever it's called. And she wanted like she had this vision of like all these tennis balls on the beach because it was like in San
Yeah.
Diego or something. And you can't just like flood a beach with tennis balls. Like that would be terrible. But with AI, she was able to like make these
Okay.
images for this brand, and it was like a huge
Yeah.
hit because it was like just like so eye-catching to see like a beach filled with tennis balls, but you would never actually want to
Wow.
do that in real life. So I think it like opens more creative possibilities for us, but it's just so different than what we're
Right.
doing as photographers. And I think that like if you want to stay relevant, then like what can you do as a
Mhm.
photographer that AI can't do? And like I would tell you, emotions are a big part of that. Like capturing true human emotion in your images.
Mhm.
Like I could I could have AI generate like headshots of me, but my eyes aren't going to have life in them, right? So yeah, and I could talk about this forever. So I'll
I think that's awesome because
right
we as photographers, we capture emotion. That's what we do. So it's like you can't recreate that in AI is basically what you're saying. You can use
exactly.
what I'm hearing you say, so you can use AI to enhance or have a different spin on it, like with illustration or adding tennis balls to a beach or something that
Exactly.
you
It's a
can't necessarily
tool.
do, but you can get
Um,
really creative with it, but
And I
using it
will
as a
also
tool
say
for your
that I
creativity,
feel like it's kind of a
basically.
divisive thing with brands. Like a lot of brands won't touch it. They're like, I want people like the whole thing photos for your brand is that you can like create
Mhm.
connections with your customers. You can seem relatable to them. You can humanize your brand. And AI kind of takes the human out of it. So that's why like a lot of I mean, there's only one agency that will even allow you to, because part of it is, I mean, it's like very unknown what's going to happen from here on out. But I think a big part of it is like brands just they don't want to take that risk of like having these AI generated images be the images that like speak for their brand.
Right. Yeah, and people want that real connection and kind of real life thing too. So
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
something that you can bring to the table. That is
Exactly.
so cool. I love this. I'm almost like it's opened up a whole new world, so I'm hoping that people listening are
Good.
also thinking the same. What's kind of like one final piece of advice you want to leave us with? Could be something we talked about or didn't.
I mean, this is something that I think every photographer should do. I know
Mhm.
that it takes some work, but it's like, why not? You already have the images. Like, what's stopping you? And my best advice is like, don't let all the rules and guidelines get in your way. Start with what you have that you can submit. So if you're like worried about the model releases, don't even start there. Start with the
Mhm.
photos of yourself or like of your life that you take every day and submit those and see what sells and then upload more of that. It's worth it and it will diversify your income, will allow you to like say no to clients that you aren't excited about. It'll bring back your creative like inspiration. So many benefits to it.
I love that, and that's a really good piece of advice to leave us on because it's something that's tangible that you can, like, take from this episode and just go do. So, I love that.
Yeah.
And then I also love to
Good.
end by asking my guests of just what's bringing you joy right now?
Oh, I I live in Idaho, and so it's been winter for like
Mm,
18 months. And
all
I'm
year.
so tired of it. I'm so ready for spring. And so I've just been trying to get out and like take walks in nature every day. And it's so cool because I'm actually like every day since I'm being consistent, I get to like see things are changing and flowers are beginning to bloom and like spring is coming. That gives me hope right
I
now.
love
That's
honestly,
yeah, it's
that's
giving
bringing
me
me joy as well. You can't go
yeah.
wrong with that,
Any little like sign of spring, even like the tulips at Trader Joe's, I'm just like, it's
honestly.
coming. We're almost done with
Oh.
winter.
We're almost there. I love that. That brings me so much joy too. So I love that. But why
Good.
don't you tell us all where we can find you?
So you can find me as Aubrey Westland on all social media platforms. I'm definitely the most active on Instagram. I have a ton of free or paid resources in my link in bio there. I don't know when this will air, but I am about to launch something called the Lazy Girl Stock Photography Bootcamp. And it's going to be a
Perfect.
great way for anyone wanting to get started with this. I'm going to be teaching you like all the lazy ways to do stock photography and all my workflow tips. And it's going to be a super affordable experience. That's definitely going to be something worth joining if you're interested in this. But yeah, Aubrey Westland, just about all over social media. So pretty easy to
Perfect.
find me that way.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing. Yeah, we'll make sure to link it all in the show notes and all that stuff. But
awesome.
yay, I'm excited. Thank you so much for coming on this episode. It was so helpful. I loved it.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. It was great. And I'm excited to have you on my podcast as well.
Yes. Little podcast swap. Okay, there you have it. I hope this episode sparked ideas that you can start to do to utilize stock photography as a passive income resource, maybe an off season hobby, or whatever that is that inspired you. If you loved this episode, make sure to leave a review on the Gold Biz podcast so that I can see which episodes you are loving the most and then also share the love in return. But thank you so much for listening to this episode. I appreciate you so much. And as always, keep shining, and we'll see you next time.